Hi, please check out my course Road to Chess Mastership. Link to the course is in the description to the video. This is the course that is designed to help you to become better chess player, to improve the way you play, and to improve your ratings. Now let's get to business. I'm going to take a look at the game between Jan Nepomniachtchi and Magnus Carlsen. Magnus Carlsen playing black, Jan Nepomniachtchi playing white. E4. Nepomniachtchi starts with E4. Carlsen answers with E5, knight F3, knight C6, D4. This is Scottish opening, and the usual and more common move in this position is to play bishop B5. This is something that is called Ruy Lopez. Also, there is a move bishop C4, which is kind of popular now, which became kind of popular now in recent years. And it sometimes it leads to a more to a game that does not have a lot of tactical complications. But there are all kinds of variations in this opening, so it might lead to complications. It might lead to calmer play. Okay, D4 was played. E captures on D4. Knight capture on D4. Bishop C5 is played. This is very common move in Scottish opening, and Jan goes for the variation with capture on C6. Another line is to play bishop E3. Bishop E3, and what is played then is usually, I think, that move queen F6, C3, knight G2 E7, bishop E2, queen G6, castle, maybe something like this if I'm not mistaken. Okay, bishop C6 was played. Nepomniachtchi captures on C6, and there is a bit unexpected move to those who is not familiar with this position, is that the move that follows is actually queen F6. This looks a bit strange, since a more expected move to be made is a capture with the pawn B, or maybe a capture with the pawn D. But for example, like, okay, it's possible, but a capture with the pawn D doesn't look great at all, since there is queen D8, king D8, bishop C4, bishop E6, bishop E6, F takes E6, and essentially white has a better endgame, since white has an advantage on the king side. White has 4 pawns against 3 pawns on the king side, and good chances of promotion in an endgame, especially in a pawn's endgame, which quite likely might be won actually for white. Another possible capture would be to capture with the pawn B, but and it is possible. For example, bishop D3, knight, queen H5. I would play maybe a castle, knight F6, something like this. But a common, so it's possible. It is possible to capture on with the pawn B. I think it's worth consideration. And the common move, but a bit unexpected move, is to play queen F6. This move actually creates a threat of checkmate on F2 if now white does some stupid thing like bishop B3, then white gets checkmated and the game is over. It's queen F2, checkmate, black won. So white has to defend the pawn EF, and there are like there is move queen D2, queen E2, queen F3 from what I see. Also there is move knight D4, but this move isn't good, since it's probably just loses the game. And black captures pawn on B2 and gets a decisive attack, so the return of the knight to D4 isn't a great idea. So I would consider actually playing. I'm already out of book in this situation. I kind of don't remember the variations exactly, since I used to play. Since I played this position, I used to play, but I didn't play it for a long time. So I probably would consider playing Queen D2 and capture D, Bishop D3. This is what I would say is worth consideration. Okay, let's see what was made. In the game, Nepomniachtchi doesn't go for Queen D2. Instead, he plays F4. It is nearly for sure, it is nearly 100% guaranteed that Nepomniachtchi knowed this position during the game, since it's only move 6. But on the face of it, the move looks quite risky, since it creates weak squares. The bishop c5 becomes expectedly strong. So this move f4 is kind of, there are risks associated with this move, and but he must have known what when he played this, what he does when he made this move. The d captures on c6, and now white would want to. Now the problem for white is it's difficult for white to finish developing the pieces, since this bishop is crazy strong and is very strong. And if white plays something like Queen e2, then it stacks the bishop on f1. The bishop on f1 is stuck, and so Queen e2 is played in order to play Bishop e3. But Bishop e3, also there is this pawn b2 that can be captured. So it's not. There are questions how white has to proceed in this position. Capture on c6. Okay, let's see. I think that Bishop d3 is the most natural move. After that, white has to play Queen d2 and hope for the best. Maybe, but I don't know why f4 was played. Okay, knight c3 was played. Probably Bishop d3 is. No, Bishop g4 is losing a piece. It's just losing a piece. F4, d takes c6, knight c3 was played, but Bishop d3 seems reasonable instead of knight c3. Bishop d3 seems reasonable to me. Knight c3 is played, Queen h4 check, Carlsen checks. He probably creates weak squares. There is really only one move, since moving the king away is a horrible idea. Just seems like a horrible idea. g3 is played, so now queen has to go away, and maybe the queen is going to. There is queen g4, but black doesn't want to enter this end game. Queen bishop g4, bishop e2, and now if bishop e2, king e2, and suddenly white just gets a pretty good position. So instead of playing queen g4, it's probably the queen would go some other place, like queen f6 or queen e7. Queen e7 was played, so the purpose of this move was to create weaknesses. And now again, the same situation, Nepomniachtchi has to think how to finish the development of the pieces. He has to play bishop d3, I would say. Okay, bishop d3 is played, knight f6. There is some pressure on e4 square, and there are all kinds of ideas. For example, if h3 is played now, then maybe knight e4, f5, queen e2. But maybe it's not that dangerous for white. Maybe it's only an exchange. Maybe it's not as dangerous. So okay, so the decision is that I think that h3 is probably worth looking at, and if a castle, so a capture on e4 is not as strong. Maybe a castle, and now queen f3, and now bishop f5 maybe, bishop d2, now a capture, bishop takes, queen takes, bishop takes, rook, and black is going to be a pawn up. So the position is good for black. The position is good for black after h3 probably if black doesn't capture immediately on e3, on e4. So knight f6 is played, queen e2, Nepomniachtchi plays queen e2, and it allows Magnus Carlsen to make a move bishop g4, a taking move that Carlsen prepares now to play long castle, and after long castle, rook h might go to e8, and it might be a dangerous situation for white since the center is attacked. And sacrifice on e4 might follow. Also, a move that exists that is knight to d5. It all will happen after queen goes away. Queen goes away to g2. Definitely looks long castle looks dangerous, and neither the short castle nor the long castle is possible now for Nepomniachtchi. I think that first it's important to deal with this bishop, but h3, for example, bishop f5, 1 to 3, and bishop d2. Already there is a capture on e4, I think. Knight e4, bishop e4, bishop e4, queen e4, queen e4, bishop e4, rook e8, castle, rook e4, and essentially black has an excellent position with an extra pawn, which is probably borderline winning. Bishop d2 was played. Nepomniachtchi played bishop d2 instead of h3. H3 might have led to a difficult situation after bishop f5. Knight d4, d5 is played. So if bishop f4, okay, but there was a move rook h to e8 seemed great. There is no short castle, there is no long castle, there is e5. There is e5, knight d5, knight e4, knight e3, bishop e3, bishop e3, and this bishop is thrown h3. All these positions are difficult to evaluate since there are a lot of weaknesses, but if white manages to get out of trouble, white might get a good position. But there are risks. Bishop, oh, I'm sorry. h3, bishop e6 maybe. Well, it's okay. It's difficult for me to evaluate the position. Instead, Carlsen plays knight d5, h3 is played, bishop e6. So there are no clear threats, but probably what black wants to do is to play knight to e3, and after capture bishop e3, there's going to be bishop e3 played, and this bishop again is going to prevent both castles, the short castle and the long castle. Bishop e6 is played. Now, okay, I think that long castle now, okay, if long castle, then I see that there is some pawn on e2. Knight e3, maybe bishop a3. Is there such a thing like bishop a2, b3, bishop a3, bishop b2? Oh, this the bishop on a2 is stuck. So if a long castle knight captures on c3, bishop c3, I don't see it as good to capture on e2 at this moment. So I don't see why long castle is bad. So it seems like a very natural move for me. There are risks associated with the capture on a2, but it's probably a good idea still, nonetheless. Knight e3, bishop e3, bishop e3, king e2. Doesn't seem too bad for white. Okay, Nepomniachtchi instead plays a3. Maybe still there is no way. I think now knight e3 is going to follow. No, okay, bishop d4 is another idea. Of course, there is if capture on d5, bishop d5, it's a check, discovered check, and an attack on a queen. But queen has a move to queen e2, and now maybe it also works for white. Now if bishop h1, then queen e7, rook e8, queen e8, rook e8, king f1, and white is an extra pawn. And if capture on d5, bishop d5, if the move that is played is a capture on e2, then king e2, rook h2 e8 check, intermediate check, very important. I think that's the idea essentially. And if now king goes away to f1, then a capture on h1, and black is with an exchange up. So this is why there is no capture. Capture on d5, capture on d5, queen e2, queen e2, king e2, rook e8 check, king f1. So this intermediate check is essentially what blocks the defense from the a rook, and without this move, it was a win for white. So there is no capture on d5 at this moment. But there is a capture with the with the a3, bishop d4, capture on d5 with the knight, capture on d5 with the pawn, long castle, capture on e4, bishop e4, c6. This is the game. Rook e1, queen c7. Okay, let's take a look at the position. This kind of, there is equal amount of pawns, some control to the center. Black is a bit better, probably a bit better, but not by far, and it seems like things are stabilized, and white got out of much larger trouble that could have happened. f5 is played, bishop d5, bishop f4, queen b6. Attacking Magnus creates a threat of capturing on b2 with a queen, and later it's going to be very bad for white. Essentially, okay, so white has a move c3. White has a move capture on d4, which I don't see a justification for that. And I see that there is a move b3 that, but it creates a lot of weaknesses after queen a6, b3, queen a6, or queen a5. No, b3. I don't like this. Queen c5. It seems dangerous. There is queen c3. There is queen a3. Seems really dangerous. So b3. So c3 has to be played. c3 was played in the game. Now Carlsen plays. What is the move for Carlsen to do? Maybe rook h to e8. Maybe his bishop is attacked. Okay, so rook h to e8. There is a capture on d4, and not justified, definitely, since the bishop on e4 is not going to hang. And so it's going to be either bishop f6 or a capture on e4. Bishop f6, then there is a capture on d5. Bishop d5, rook d5, rook d5, c takes d5, queen takes d5. So seems like there has to be first has to be a capture on e4. Game, bishop e4, queen e4, bishop f6 is played, and the position kind of seems kind of equal. Bishop queen c4, rook d1, rook d1, rook f8, a4, h6, king d1, queen a4, g4, bishop e5. Okay, in this situation, one has to be careful with the moves like b4, not to miss them, since if a pawn c6 was on c7, there would be a move b4 that would not be winning since there is queen a4 and the rook d1 is attacked. But other than that, it most likely would be a winning move. So okay, how white has to play at this situation? I would say that to capture on e5, I don't like capture on e5 since it just capture on e5 just improves the position of the queen. Maybe queen e4 to force black to capture. On f4, queen e4, queen bishop f4, queen f4, queen f4 and rook d8, or queen e4, bishop f4, queen f4, rook e8, queen d4. It seems like queen e4 is a good move. Okay, let's see how Nepomniachtchi played. Well, Nepomniachtchi played bishop e3. He retracts, withdraws his bishop. a6 is played. Bishop c5. An interesting idea of getting initiative. Now Carlsen's queen on a5 is stuck, and Carlsen has to move away his rook to d8 maybe. Rook d8, rook d8, queen d8, queen f7, queen d1, king a2, queen a4, king b1, queen d1, king a4, queen a4, bishop a3, and bishop f6. It seems like okay. I would vote. I vote for rook d8. Rook d8 is played. Magnus Carlsen. Rook d8, queen d8, queen f7 now probably leads to a draw. I think that queen f7 is played. Queen d1, king a2, queen a4, bishop a3, bishop f6 is played in the game. Queen e6, king b8, queen d6, king c8, queen e6, king b8, and the game ends in a draw by repetition. Thank you for watching, and please check out my course Road to Chess Mastery. The link is below in the description to the video. Thank you.